Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch, your own sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master that sales conversation. Today's episode is one of my favorites because it's an on-air coaching call with one of our actually very new Sales Maven Society members. It's Jessica Morrison. Jessica, welcome to the show, friend.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Well, tell everybody a little bit about you and your business.
I am a web designer for executive and leadership coaches. So I create responsive website designs on WordPress, and I also help with branding strategy, which is a big passion of mine.
Awesome. How long have you been doing that?
2.5 years now. And in my previous life, I was an influencer, a blogger, professional blogger, and social media influencer. So I'm sort of doing the same type of thing, but I pivoted to be able to help business owners do that.
I love that. I love that. Well, we're so excited to have you in the group. And I am particularly excited because you are a relatively new member to the group. I don't know a ton about your business. I'm still learning about you. So this is going to be so fun to do an on-air coaching call with you. So tell me, how can I be of service to you today? What is going to help you right now to grow your business?
Well, what I'm having a challenge with is a lot of my projects are sort of one and done with my clients because I come in and I do their website, I give them branding strategy, and then we sort of finish off that season of working with them. But I do offer website maintenance programs for my clients that include all of their theme updates, their plugin updates, and Google Analytics reporting. And I think it's something that's super valuable for clients who don't want to have anything to do with their website, are really afraid to touch it. But my challenge is, after they've made the initial investment with me, for some reason, I'm having a mental block when it comes to asking them to sign up for a 6 or 12-month website maintenance subscription. Okay. And I believe in the value, but for some reason, I'm stumbling with this kind of mindset issue of asking them to make another purchase.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions so that I can understand a little bit more. And I already have some ideas, but I need to ask you some questions to see if they're even valid ideas. Okay. So first and foremost, why is it a 6-month and a 12-month commitment? Have you considered a monthly just reoccurring?
It is. They can pay for it monthly. I have it set up such that it's a monthly payment. The reason I do it in the 6 and 12 month is because I set up some software, and the things that I do, I want them to be able to see some of the benefit, especially from their Google Analytics reporting, if they haven't done this yet, to really get a sense of the kind of information they can glean from it. Okay. That's why I chose to do it that way. And they do also get a discount on project work. So some of my clients come back to me over the course of the year. They don't really want to be adding a page to their website. So if they are on a maintenance subscription, they get a discount off the project rate also.
Okay. The reason I'm asking about and kind of challenging you a little bit about the 6-month and the 12-month is I'm concerned for you that you're having to resell it every 6 or 12 months or at the end of the project, which we already know is a little bit of a struggle. So do you know off the top of your head, I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but do you know off the top of your head, how many people sign up for a 6-month or a 12-month commitment and then it's just reoccurring? They just sign up for another 6 months or another 12 months. Or are you actually having to have that conversation?
No, most of them, after they see the value of what it does, and they can kind of set it and forget it with their website, which is what most of my clients prefer. Like they really don't even want to have to touch it. So for them, it's peace of mind. Okay.
So love that. Totally fine with where you're going with this. I like the idea for you from a business standpoint to have a monthly option for people because that becomes income that you can kind of count on that comes in every month. And as you build up your clientele, that's just a nice little buffer, right? It's like your foundation revenue that you know is going to come every month. And if that's not critical for you, you like the 6 month and you like the 12 month, and I'm totally on board with that too. I just love the membership, the reoccurring payment option. So a couple of things. I think one of the crucial parts of your discussion is going to be pre-framing this offer as you are getting the project started, so that when you get to the end of the website being done, this is just a natural kind of next step. You've already primed them that this is the next step for continued work, right? So once they've signed the contract, I don't know, you tell me, but once they've signed the contract, are they getting like some type of a message from you or some type of here are the next steps kind of update?
Yes, I have a workflow set up in my CRM that basically lets them know, like, they have to fill out a questionnaire that helps me understand their brand. And there's a different sequence of emails that they get. So that's something I could definitely build in there.
Okay. So I would build that in up front, because now we're pre-framing for them. Like, once this project is complete, next step is to sign up for the maintenance plan. This is going to ensure that you receive, your updates in a timely fashion. Your website is going to, be working like it's supposed to. And you're going to start receiving Google Analytics, which is crucial for you to make good marketing decisions on how to spend your dollar, so you know what's driving traffic to your website. Like, I would really sell that up front. Like, here, and we have a couple options available. There's a 12-month program, 12-month maintenance. There's the 6-month maintenance, or you can do a monthly. And we'll be talking about that towards the end of the project. So you pre-frame for them that is going to come.
I love that. I think that's definitely something that I could do. And I think, because, like I said, I think at the end, that's what's giving the problem is waiting too long to do it. Because I do think it is such a valuable service that a lot of people are really excited about, because they just, if you're not a website person, you really want to have nothing to do with what goes on under the hood. So I think the pre-framing would help me a lot earlier on.
The other thing about maintenance is it's not very sexy, right? Like it's like maintenance, right? And I also wonder if there's something where you want to be thinking about, is there a better name for this? Like, that is going to be like, this is so crucial to the success of your website. I mean, if you just invested however much money, but I'm suspecting thousands of dollars, right, in your website, then you want to make sure that it's working. You want to make sure that your response rate is, fast. And I'm acting like I know about websites. I really don't. But, you want to like preface for them. The other piece that I think is important here is the security piece, right? Because if you don't keep your stuff up to date, I know this to be true, but you tell me, you're the expert, that this can open your website up to like be targeted, right? And you can have some issues with that. With security.
Yes, you can have malware, you can have critical errors on your site. And this is another thing that I've seen with clients who maybe didn't sign up with it and came back for help, is you also don't want to update things automatically. So because I read all of the articles to know which plugins might have conflicts with a theme, some people think, oh, well, I just went in and updated everything and now my site is broken. So that's a critical piece, is knowing when to update plugins and themes and software.
Yeah. So again, I think in the messaging, kind of in that initial kind of workflow, like you said, that there needs to be we're pre-framing for them how critical it is to the longevity of the website, and this idea that you become a part of the team, right? You become a part of their team to ensure the success of their business. Because even though I'm not a huge proponent of like when you first start out going and spending $10,000 on a website to get it created. I also know that a website is crucial. People expect you to have a website. Like you have to invest in this, and there's no reason to, it's like, to me, it's like going and buying a car and then being shocked that you have to put gas in it, right? To make it work.
That is such a good analogy.
That's part of the process. By the way, what I just did is a technique that's called chunking. It's called chunking sideways. It's an NLP technique. You're going to be learning more about chunking because I talk a lot about it in the society, and I talk about it in the masterclass, which I know you're signed up for our December masterclass. So I'll be talking about chunking there too. But chunking sideways is a really great way to help people kind of get out of their head about like, oh, I'm going to spend more money, or I don't really want to invest any more money in my website. When you can start using these like sideways chunks, these like examples that aren't really anything website related, but it's related as far as this idea of that you have to maintain, and you can't just buy a car and never spend money on it again. You have to have insurance. You have to put gas in it. And believe it or not, some of us realize you have to actually put oil in the car, right? Like you have to get an oil change. You have to rotate your tires. Like there are things that you have to do to keep your car in good working condition. That means your car is going to run for years to come versus one and done. Like I got my car and a year later it blew up and now I have to buy a new car. Like that's not what we're going for here. So when you can give them an example that's outside of like a standard website conversation, it starts to get their brain going like, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I have to have the maintenance plan with Jessica. There's really no other logical solution here other than to be on a plan with her.
What do you think about language too, like maybe protecting your investment? Because that's when I sort of see that people make that big investment. And like you just alluded to, you don't want to make that big investment and then have it burst into flames. Do you think that kind of phrasing it that way might be effective?
So when you're talking about the advantage of the maintenance plan or whatever you end up deciding to call it, you want to speak in what I call towards language and away from language. I just said that like I made it up. I didn't. It's a very NLP term, and it's motivational traits. We all have different motivational traits. They're context specific. And there are certain people that are more motivated towards having something, and there are other people who are more motivated away from having something bad happen. And so when you're writing this up, you want to have some towards language and some away from language, because we don't know, like, unfortunately, people don't walk around with like, cards on their forehead that says my motivational traits are, 80% towards and 20% away from. Although, gosh, wouldn't that be so helpful to earn their business? But because we don't know that, we have to work some of that language into the messaging around it. So for instance, when you say, the idea is this is going to save you time, that's a toward type message, like save you time. Like that's a benefit. The other thing that it's going to do is it lessens your risk of having malware or an attack on your website. That's an away from. We don't want that to happen. So we got to work some of that in there as well. And then, so I will say the thing about towards and away from language is when we're writing up our own type of marketing or our own little, like, here's the advantages of such and such, and we're doing bullet points, our motivational traits will tend to come out in our language because we're like, well, that's what motivates me. And you've got to take a step back and look at it and go, okay, especially if you're really one way or the other, like if you're totally an away from type strategy person and that's your motivational trait, you'll tend to speak and write a lot in the away from strategies. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that it will start to limit how many people find the message relatable. So you want to have a mix of them. I tend to, I have a very high toward strategy. That's especially when it comes to work and the people I want to work with. I like working with people that have high toward strategies because I speak and think and talk that way. And I also know that that can be detrimental to my business. So a lot of times when I'm writing stuff, I have to go and like take out some of the toward language and make it away from language too, because we don't know who we're always speaking to. So that was kind of the long explanation of the toward and away from strategy, but I would encourage you to really work that in. And so if I'm going to write 5 bullet points, I'll tend to have 3 toward type language and I'll have 2 away from. That's just kind of a rule of thumb that I tend to follow. You'll never see a message from me that's all away from strategies, because I don't want to attract people that have a really high away from strategy to work with me, like in my private coaching, for instance.
Okay, that makes total sense. And now I'm sitting here self-analyzing, trying to figure out what I am.
Just go back and look at some of the stuff that you've written up about offers and marketing, and you'll start to see it in your language pattern. It's a good one to recognize. There's a really great NLP book, and it's called Words That Change Minds. I think it's been updated many times. It was written by Shelley Rose Charvet, and she took one section of NLP. Like NLP is, I'm like talking to you like you know this stuff. So I don't even know if you know that I have
actually do, and I'm fascinated by that field of research. So yes.
Okay. For somebody listening that's like, what is Nikki talking about? I'm talking about neurolinguistic programming, and I have a pretty extensive background in it. And there are over, I don't know, like 2,000 NLP processes or something. And there's thousands of books on Amazon written about NLP. And, it's broken a lot into processes, and there's one process that's called language and behavior profile. And what I love about NLP is like one person can take one process and build a whole business around it. And I think that's what Shelley Rose Charvet did when she wrote this book, Words That Change Minds, because it's all around the language and behavioral profile. And so it's just all about motivational traits and, are people internally motivated or externally motivated? And I bring some of this into my work, and I oftentimes will bring it in when I'm working with a client who's going to do some hiring. I want them to think about like, are you attracting, based on your language, the person who's got the traits that you need or want? But you should also be thinking about it in your marketing as well. So that's a great book if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Shelley Rose Charvet, Words That Change Minds. There's a workbook that you can buy with it as well. I have it. I refer to it often when I'm doing certain things. And I just love that piece of NLP, the language and behavioral profiles.
Yeah, I think my traditional, my background before I was in influencing was in pharmaceutical sales. And it's so funny because I think I'm constantly trying to, and it's not even really sales. I call it marketing because it's not, we were never selling things physically, but is that whole fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So I feel like sometimes I weigh too heavy on emphasizing those reasons why somebody would want to do something. It's some of that formal training comes back in. So I constantly have to be examining that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's just something to notice about yourself, and then also to add some flexibility in your behavior when you're writing things or when you're putting together offers. And especially when you're talking about this maintenance plan, because if it's all toward language, you're going to eliminate a lot of people. They'll be like the people who are like, who cares if it saves me time? But whereas somebody else like me, I'm always like, I will always spend money to save time. Like that's just kind of my motivational trait. Like I like to save time. Whereas somebody else will be like, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to run the risk of my website going down. I don't want to run the risk of, people getting putting malware on it, or, somebody taking my website and posting porn on it, or, all these crazy things that we hear, or taking your website hostage, right? That's another scary thing that can happen. And you don't want to be all doom and gloom. And at the same time, you want to be realistic in the stuff that you're putting out to people, so that we've got a pre-frame for them. Back to this kind of where we started here, pre-frame that this conversation's coming. And then I want you to think about, where do you then have the conversation with the person? At what point, because now we've pre-framed, they're primed for it, that when in your process through the website and deliverables, do you then bring up the maintenance plan and allow for them to sign up for it again? And one of the things I would encourage you to think about here is, when when is the money coming in? Because once somebody has spent the money on the website, you spend the money and you might be thinking about it for a week or so, but then it's kind of, you're off onto something else. So it's not as big of a deal for you to look at like, oh yeah, and here's this next expense that's coming. So think about that too, as far as like the way you're getting paid and when is a good time to bring up this next step.
And it's kind of interesting because typically people put down a deposit to hold their spot for their design, and then they pay the remainder when the design is complete. And I have put in the maintenance package in the initial proposal for some people who will check the box right then and there while they're making that initial deposit. They're just ready to go ahead and sign up there. So I've had some people do that.
Awesome.
Right from the get-go. But I can see, like you just said, maybe when I'm giving them some training on using their website and getting ready to build them for that final installment, it would make sense at that point to have them go ahead and sign up.
Yeah. The other thing too, because now you just said that there's a box that they can check. That needs to be a part of the conversation too, of like, you'll see in the form that I'm going to send you, there's an option for you to check the box for the maintenance program. Let me just spend like a minute or two explaining kind of the benefit of this and why you're going to want to have this. And then we'll have another conversation about it towards the end as we're getting closer to the launch of the website. And so you have that, like, they're already ready. Like, go ahead. If you already know that you need this maintenance plan, go ahead and just check that box already. Like, let's just make it part of the process. The other thing you can say is things like, the majority of my clients know that they need a maintenance plan right from the get-go. So it's something that we put in the initial like down payment. If you want to, you can go ahead and just check that box. Because it's likely you're going to want to do that at the end. So I'm starting to like prime them too with language that's like, of course you're going to do this. Like, it's a foregone conclusion that of course you're going to sign up for it because they need it, right? There isn't anybody out there, I don't think, who has a website who doesn't need a maintenance plan. I mean, it's just part of your doing business. I think it's not a place to cut corners.
Exactly. And I think that it's going to make it so much more helpful now that I can pre-frame that, because I do strongly believe that it is so valuable. So for that part, I'm really confident in that part.
Yeah. So speak about it from this perspective of like, most of our clients know the value of this and like already budget this or already plan this into their website or into the cost of doing business. There's always going to be a web maintenance cost. Like, in my mind, it's like, of course it is. So it's I'm taking a little bit of an assumptive close technique here too. Like, well, of course you're going to do it. And then if somebody acts like, well, I don't know that I am going to do it. And you go, okay, well, you're welcome to think about it. I'm welcome to, I'm happy to answer any questions that come to mind for you around it. But it is definitely something you're going to want to decide on before we finish the project. And then you just kind of leave it there. Bring it back up, give them some people do need time to like think about it. Like, okay, I hadn't really thought about maintenance plan, whatever, give them the time and then bring it back up to them again, where in your process does it make sense to like have that finalized conversation about it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be even more helpful, like doing it from the beginning for the people that are already into it, have bought in already. But I think by the end, I can see where this is fitting naturally too, because I think as people see more of the design process and some of the complexities that go into doing this, I think for those that may have been on the fence before are sort of in it by that point. They're like, yeah, don't want to do this. So
yeah. The other thing too is be thinking about, can you be planting seeds throughout the process? For instance, if there's a certain plugin that somebody's going to be adding to their website for whatever reason, like I know one of the plugins that we use all the time is Pretty Links, because that's what I use when I go on a podcast is the way, anyway, there's a million reasons why we use it. But if you said to me, if you were designing my website and you go, well, I noticed that, we've added Pretty Links, we've added some of these other things. This is where maintenance is going to come up because you don't always just want to automatically do an update. There's reasons why certain websites want to do the update and others don't. And that's where we come in as the experts and do the research and make that decision and or recommendation for you. right? It's like, oh, well, again, of course, like it's like that foregone conclusion. Of course, you're going to want this.
Yeah.
So you can be planting seeds.
I think not only with plugins, but choosing your theme. I mean, there are so many places I feel like I could plant seeds.
Yeah. Okay, good. So just remember to work that into your language. Like you don't have to like beat them over the head with it, but at the same time, you do need to probably bring it up more and more. And I think you'll find that the selling of it gets so much easier for you because if you don't bring it up, people will feel unsatisfied with the fact that why didn't Jessica like offer me the maintenance plan? Like what's going on? Why does she not want my business? Right? None of those things are true. So we want to make sure that we're leaving them feeling satisfied and they understand what the next step is.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, good. Any other question for me while we're kind of in this little coaching session this morning?
Do you have any ideas for what you would name it? I feel like I totally get what you're saying about the maintenance not being sexy. And because you're so good with words, do you have any suggestions for maybe how you would frame that in a way that was a little bit more appealing for people? Maybe like a protection plan. I'm trying to think.
I love protection plan. I will say that's what first came to mind is something that's around protection. Also something around like security. I'll tell you what I thank you for the compliment. I feel like when it comes to naming things, I am terrible at naming stuff. Like I'm always like, my ideas are horrible, but I usually go to the thesaurus and that's where I kind of start is I have an idea of what I want it to be. And then I go and I like, look, the one thing I will say is I try not to be, well, there's a part of me that deeply wants to be very clever, but that does not work for me. And so I have to be more on the nose. I find that anytime I try to get clever, that people go like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Right. So you want it to be pretty obvious what it is. I just think maintenance it just feels kind of blah. And that's not what we want it to feel like. We want it to feel like protection. We want it to feel like secure.
I think maintenance almost has that like kind of not negative connotation, but it's something you don't like doing. Like most of us, at least I don't really love maintenance. So.
Right. And at the same time, there's a reason why, we put locks on our front doors. There's like all of these things come into play. So I would just be thinking about why people need to protect things and what would be a phrase or a name of it that helps plant that seed in the mind of the person who's going to hear about the program.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, as we wrap up today, I always like to finish with 2 questions. The first one is, as a relatively new member to the Sales Maven Society, you're in your first month when we're recording this, your first month in the Sales Maven Society. What's one benefit you've received so far being in the group?
Oh gosh. Well, I had the opportunity already to jump on a check-in call, which was really valuable, where people could ask questions and get feedback on things. But I also love that, I've used this already, is being able to ask for your advice when I'm writing out some type of communication or need to get a point across. And I feel like I was joking with another society member the other day that we wish you could just write all of our communications for us because you have a way with words that kind of, it gets the point across without being rude or, I like to be kind to everybody. And I want to say things in the right way that they're well received. And I feel like you have such a gift for looking at something quickly and being like, I would make this change, and this change. And all of a sudden it sounds so easy and so smooth that I think that it's been a godsend. And I love reading everybody else's too, because it's always fun to kind of pour through the group and see what other people are asking for feedback on, because we share a lot of the same types of issues. So that has been hugely impactful.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. I loved, there was somebody in the group the other day that had asked a question about language. And so I had given some suggestions, and then somebody else reached out to me privately and they were like, wow, I took that exact language you gave this other person and I used it and I got the response immediately and closed the deal. So I was like, well, that's why it's a group setting, right? That's why we do this in the group. And I ask ask you guys to post things in the group with your questions, because then other people can take them and benefit. So I love that too. So thank you so much. Now, the last question is, I think after people hearing about what you do, and especially our discussion about how important it is to protect your website, you might want to be in touch with Jessica. So how can people get in touch with you?
I would love for people to visit my website, which is seasidedigitaldesign.com. And I also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I have fallen in love with the LinkedIn platform. So you can definitely find me there at Jessica Morrison, and I would love to connect.
Okay. And her contact information will be in the show notes. So please reach out to Jessica, go connect with her on LinkedIn. And hey, if you and I aren't connected on LinkedIn, let's connect there too. I am on social media. I tend to spend my time, on Facebook, because that's where my group is. And I spend the majority of my time actually inside the group. But you can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram is another place I spend a little bit of time. Are you on Instagram, Jessica?
I am at Seaside Digital Design on Instagram as well.
Yeah, there you go. And it's SEA, right? Seaside.
Correct.
Yeah.
I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, so that's where the genesis of the name came from.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, as we wrap up today, as a listener, if you are ready to ignite your own sales and you love the idea of being in a group and getting some language suggestions and some feedback, and just connecting with an amazing group of individuals like Jessica, then you are invited to join the Sales Maven Society. This is the place where you and I connect. You bring questions, concerns, challenges that you're having, and I provide answers, solutions, and guidance to boost your confidence in your sales situation. So join the Sales Maven Society by going to www.salesmavensociety.com. And if you enter the coupon code I'm going to give you, it's going to take $80 off your first month of membership. So it is 27 trial, all one word, 27 TRIAL. And you can join the group in your first month for $27. We'd love to have you. Jessica's there. You can come hang out with her and lots of other cool people. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here. And thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.